All right, so you were married, what was the date?
August 10th, 1969. I had told Mom so many times about the trip that I had with Ken to California that we decided to not do the same, but do something similar to that on our honeymoon. We had no money, so what we did is we used the cash that we got on our honeymoon, on our wedding, to pay for the honeymoon. And we drove off in my 67 Volkswagen.
A tent.
And we had a tent, and we drove off there. We went to pretty much the same route as I took. Stopped in Old Faithful in Yellowstone, and just a great time. We went for 3 weeks, and then when it was over, it was time to go back to work. And at that point, believe it or not, I was a school teacher. And the reason I was a school teacher is I had wanted to go to law school, but I didn't because they were drafting people in law school. And the only way to get out of it was to have some deferrable employment. And being a teacher, they deferred it. So I ended up getting a job as a teacher with no experience, no knowledge of kids, nothing. In fact, it's kind of an interesting story. I knew that I could get out of I could get out of
The draft.
the draft by teaching. So what do? Southern Connecticut had a program for college graduates with no teaching experience, and you get a master's degree out of it. So I figured, okay, I'll do it. But I needed a job teaching. So I just picked Wallingford, Connecticut out of the phone book with no knowledge of Wallingford, asked them if they were hiring teachers. And they said, yeah. So they set up an appointment right away, and I met with the principal of the high school, it wasn't the high school, it was the elementary school. And we sat down and we started talking, and he asked me a bunch of questions about kids. He goes, what do you know about homework? Do you believe in giving homework to kids? I said, well, it depends on the circumstances. He goes, what do you do if kids are fighting in the lunchroom? I said, well, it depends on the circumstances. He asked me about a half a dozen questions. I didn't know the answer to any of them. And I said, it depends on the circumstances to every one of them. And he looked at me and he said, you're hired. I like a man who's flexible.
So good.
So that's how I got my first job.
You know, I was the one that found the program for you.
What?
The intensive program. I was the one that found you're out for the draft. I found it. He didn't know how, he was trying to get out of the draft. I said, you're only going to get out. I've done research, found you could get out of being a teacher. I found about the program. I thought someone would steer him that way.
Yeah,
I found it for him.
So I ended up getting a master's and a sixth-year degree in education, two advanced degrees, just to do. But then we found after a while, with no kids and a house that we had and 2 cars, we were doing okay with both of us teaching. But with the expenses that were going on, and this was mid-70s, it wasn't really a lot, we were going down the tubes because we couldn't make it with one teacher's salary, 2 cars, and a house. So that's when I left teaching and took a job at a rock and roll radio station, strictly on commission. And that was the beginning of a whole new change in life and career, because that was really something I felt a lot more comfortable with. Sales, marketing, advertising is something I really enjoyed a lot.
Great. Tell us about PLR. Tell us about the radio station.
Yeah.
Because this was a big part of your life for a long time.
Oh yeah. We went to Marriage Encounter, which is a whole other story in our life. But we went to Marriage Encounter and we met an older couple, and this man was this couple was very nice to us, and they wanted to continue to take us out to dinner and do all sorts of nice things for us. And they wanted to pay all the time. And I was too proud to let someone do that. And I told them that I really enjoy their company, I enjoy going out with them, but I just can't let them pay for dinner. He goes, then why, what's your problem? I told him that I didn't make any money at all. He goes, well, you should come to work for me. I said, what do you do? He goes, I own a radio station. I said, I don't know anything about radio. He goes, you're a salesman. I said, I never sold anything in my life. He goes, you're a salesman. So he ended up having me volunteer as an intern for 6 months, every day after school. I came and I just learned the radio business. And then after 6 months, there was an opening in the sales department, and I realized that he wasn't the one who controlled the sales department. It was the general manager. He was just the owner. Just the owner. He was just the owner. He didn't really have day-to-day responsibility. So the sales manager and the general manager both said that they wanted me to work for them, and I did.
And what year was this?
1978. So I left teaching, went to work at the radio station, and at the end of the first year of sales, I made as much as I did after 9 years of teaching, strictly on commission. Then the next year, I doubled it, and we were doing quite well. And
Which was another house,
we bought another house,
bigger house.
bigger house, and and 3 or 4 years later, the sales manager left, and there was this job available as sales manager, and I wanted that job because at that point I was the top salesman. And the owner, my friend, said that he couldn't hire me as a sales manager because he needed me too much on the street as a salesman. And I told him that, I really wanted to be a sales manager. And what I ended up doing is, without all the details, I ended up leaving that station, going to another station out of town. I wouldn't be in competition with him. Out of town as sales manager. I did that for a year, and we had a great year. I traveled 50 miles each way to work, and at the end of the year, I was telling the owner of the station, about things that we were doing at the station, and he said, I own a station in Indiana. Why don't you come with me out to Indiana and talk to them, because their their ratings in just advertising ratings are low, but the ratings in terms of listeners are high. So he goes, maybe you can give them some advice. So we went out there for a week, and on the way back, he asked me how I liked it and everything, and I said how much I enjoyed it. And I said to him, how far away from a job like this do you think I am? And he said, about 2 weeks. So that's when we ended up leaving, like on a moment's notice, to move to Lafayette, Indiana.
And when was that?
1982. Three. When we first started going out, I was working at the hospital, and Cathy and I were planning on going to Florida on vacation for spring break, my senior year. And I was sitting out in the hallway, minding my own business, just kind of daydreaming of taking off for a week with my girlfriend. And I wrote on a piece of paper the words Florida. And my good buddy, who many of you know, Meyer, was working with us. I got him the job working as a file clerk alongside of me. We had a boss who was a real jerk. And
Squeeze.
he was always getting on Meyer and May for goofing off.
In
And
my lap.
he came up and he saw me sitting on the floor with a piece of paper that said Florida on it. So he looks at Meyer and he said, Meyer, look at this jerk. Look at this foolish kid sitting there, wasting time. Look what he wrote. So Meyer looks at the piece of paper, kind of a squirrely look on his face, and says, Florida. And when he did that, I started laughing. He started laughing. The two of us are on the floor rolling, and the boss just walked away.
That is funny. All right, let's talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So you're dating starting fall of 67.
So he'd come back from California. I had a job working there. I graduated from UConn in '65. And so by then I was doing research at the hospital, St. Rainfield's Hospital, New Haven, for Dr. Shapiro. That's the one. His daughter was my best friend. I had my own private research lab, working with radioactive isotopes, stuff on the fourth floor in the hallway in a separate wing of the hospital, not near the patients. And this is where Roger was working, filing X-rays. That's how we met. He and Myra were filing X-rays. I had met them like that. That's how I knew he was going to California. In fact, I was the one who encouraged him to go to California. I thought he needed to change, and we got together, and he came back. So we started dating then. Where did I go from there now?
Well-
We were dating for a year, and then, well, I was not Jewish. I'll tell you that. I'll bring that into the story. Okay, I was not Jewish. His mother and father were not happy at all that he was dating me. Then he said to him, he wanted to get married. They said no, they didn't like that. They were very opposed to it. At that point, I'd really given up being Catholic. I had found a lot of things in the Catholic Church was not happy with from college and high school. I'm not going to that. I was very disillusioned with religion. I knew Dr. Shapiro. In fact, I had gone to Jewish services with him several times, see what the synagogue, before I ever met Roger, see what it was like. I said, to me, it was just convert. It was in my mind, but it would be best for us if I did that. I thought my mother would be upset. My father had died 4 years earlier, and my mother didn't know what to say. At that point, my sister was having a baby. She was younger than me, and she wasn't married. My mother was just, she had a hard time in life at that stage of her life. I hated to tell her, but she told her mother, my grandmother, who I called Nana, said Agnes, accept it, she'll be happy, they'll be better off being the same religion, so, having their children, raising them together. It's the best thing she can do. And my grandmother had two sisters who were nuns. She still told my mother, the best thing was for me to do, I would have a happy life. And she was right, my mother accepted it. My mother was so good about it that she actually came and stayed in the room when Michael had your breast, trying to understand the religion. And she had been best friends with the Shapiro family too, so being Jewish was not strange to her at all. But that's what I meant. I decided I would go, called a rabbi. Of course, like most rabbis, he gave me a very hard time. I'd go back and argue and tell him why, and he asked me many questions. I went through, I had to learn Hebrew, had all the days, history, everything to be as if I had been born Jewish. I had to go to a mikveh, which is another story. The mikveh is like the last symbolic thing that you do to become converted. And I've been a wonderful Jew since then. I'm probably better than he is.
Not probably.
That's great. What about your wedding? So you were married in August of '69.
Okay, I'll tell you that. Can you?
Keep going.
Okay. I had the year before we got married, Roger, Dad decided he wanted to break up with me. He said to me, I don't want to be tied down. You should go and have a good life. Get yourself a nice sports car and have fun. He helped me pick out a sports car. He said, get an Austin Healey 3000. I couldn't find one. He just looked in the paper. He said, there's a car you might like, a Morgan. I was going to put the Morgan. Had a great time. Looked at it. Next thing he said, let's get married. I think he wanted the car. I think he did. So anyway, I was planning the wedding. I went through conversion. A conservative synagogue in New Haven, Bethel conservative, Rabbi Jordan Offsire, wonderful man, with 6 other girls. We set our wedding date, and I wanted to be married in the synagogue, and you had to have kosher food there. I had to find a kosher caterer. The kosher caterers in New Haven were expensive. My mother didn't have any money at all. My father had died. He didn't leave her any money at all. She just had a house to pay for, my sister to support, who was an unmarried mother, and my brother was still in high school.
And I just graduated college. I didn't have any money.
He had no money, so I sold my car to pay for the kosher caterer for our wedding. I made my own wedding dress with the help of my friend's mother. My first wife, Sylvia, his late wife, loaned me her mantilla to wear on my head. I went to New York and cut out lace to put on the sleeves around the collar for my wedding dress, which I made myself. It was a really nice wedding.
And she was still making it the day of the wedding.
I was sewing them the day of the wedding.
Surprise anyone.
That's me. So that was the beginning of us together, our beginning married. And you can fill in from there.
Mom, you were telling me a little bit about your travels in the Northeast as a kid. Tell me more.
In high school, my friends had gone to public high school. They all went to basketball games. I went with them at the local high school. My bus or someone would take us and pick us up. But in our junior year, the high school went to the state championship. It was in Boston. My friend's older brother was like a chaperone for us. About 6 of us and her brother all went on a train from New Haven to Boston. I can't believe my mother let me go. All these girls and one guy, she didn't really know them. They were my dearest friends. Unfortunately, I know most of them are already dead by now. And we had a great time, and we stayed at a big hotel in Boston. We saw Will Chamberlain go stayed on our floor. In fact, he had started a fire, and then he threw some burning papers out the window. There was like a roof of another building. The fireman came into our room to get put it out.
Wow.
From Will Chamberlain, and it was to basketball. I started and I took there's an after-school class. It's a recreation program that taught us to play girls basketball, half court. That's when I first started to play. Never went any further. That's what really developed my love of basketball, which I love to this day, my favorite sport. And we had good times with these girls. Even though they went to public school, I went to private school, but we were still friends for years.
Oh, that's great. All right, Dad, tell me about Summer of Love and your trip to California.
That's one I'll never forget.
Or never remember.
Or if I was there, I don't remember. But I was, I think. Anyhow, it was a real crossroads in my life. I had trouble not wanting to be around New Haven. I had one more year in school left. I was afraid of getting drafted, which I didn't want to do. And I had broken up with my girlfriend, not mom, but another girlfriend. I just wanted to get away. And I told my buddy, Ken Pollins, who ended up being the best man at our wedding, told Ken that I was gonna go on a motorcycle to California and spend the summer out there. And he said, "You're crazy, you can't go out to California on a motorcycle. If you really wanna go out to California, we'll go together in my car." Oh, my car broke down. I didn't even have a car at that point. So that's what we did. So we went to California and lived out there for the summer. Mainly San Francisco, the Summer of Love.
This was 1967?
67. We went, one of the biggest things that I remember is we heard that the Doors were playing at Mount Tamalpais, and there was a whole big love fest going on there. So we hitchhiked up the mountain to see the Doors, and on the way there, we get picked up. Who do we get picked up by? The Hells Angels on motorcycles. So we got on the motorcycles, stupid kids, and we went there, and they had kind of a barrier where they were they weren't the bad guys. They were like the guards watching the band and making sure that there was no trouble. But since we came with them, we hung around with them, and they were nice guys and no trouble. Then we stayed in San Francisco, ate Ashbury for a while. Then we drove down to Monterey. Went to the Monterey Pop Festival.
And who was playing there?
Joplin, Hendrix. We didn't have enough money to get in, so we didn't see all of them. We just kind of looked in through the gates and just hung out. And it was just an amazing time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You went to Mexico then too?
What?
You went to
Oh,
Mexico?
I went to Mexico, went to Tijuana, went to Ensenada. Just,
His little Volkswagen.
yeah. Oh, this is funny. On the way to California, going through Needles, California, hottest place in the country, it was 106 degrees. And we were dying of heat in that little Volkswagen, no air conditioning, obviously. And we were wondering why it was so hot. When we got to California, it was still hot in the car. And it turned out Ken had the heater turned on and we couldn't turn it off. So going through Needles, California, 106 degrees with the heater on.
Mom, what were you like as a teenager growing up? And then tell me a little bit about where you went to college and what you studied.
I'll try and make this not too long. When we went to grade school, it was K through eighth grade. When we graduated from eighth grade, we had to go to high school. My parents did not like the public schools in New Haven. They're rough kids. It was Fairhaven Junior High School and Wilbur Cross High School. They thought they'd be very rough kids. They didn't want me going there. They tried to had me apply to different high schools. One I would have had to take a train to in Milford.
Wow.
The other one was by bus. They insisted I go there. I didn't want to go. It was a Catholic school. Did not want to go there at all. I fought and fought and fought. I did the same thing when I was in kindergarten. I didn't want to go to kindergarten. I hated it. I didn't want to be home and play. So I said I wanted to be with my aunt because we had lived with her when I was at preschool. So it was so bad. My mother had to have my aunt came from New Jersey and drove us to Connecticut to stay for a week and went to kindergarten with me every day until I got used to it and would go to kindergarten. So it's the same aunt that was so close to. So anyway, I went to the high school. I wasn't happy at all nonsense, all religion. I just didn't like it at all. I had a hard time making friends at first. The second year, I made some very good friends. I said, okay, I'll stay. I had no choice. But I kept up my friends from childhood. We're still very, very good friends. And it was different. I had to get on a bus early in the morning. It was like 40 minutes ride from where I lived to the school, and cold school bells, all yellow buses. They were very cold. They had no heat. Had to walk up a big hill to get to the bus, and you had to want to stay after school. You had to walk down this big hill and take a public bus home. But I adjusted. I did very well in school. I made friends. I took 4 years of Latin. Did really well. Got prizes in Latin and French. Did well in science, and from there I decided I wanted to be a medical technologist. I said, no, I'm not sure why. I thought medicine was great, loved medicine, so I decided to go to college and study that. My mother took me to visit St. Mary's College, part of Notre Dame in Indiana. Remember, we were living in New Haven, and we went by train. She said, when you come home, you have to get on a plane. I didn't want to fly. It's pretty far, so I ruled that out. So I found a school in Rhode Island, Salve Regina in Newport. It was a beautiful, really nice school. Then again, I didn't like that school either. The girls there's some pretty wealthy girls from Boston area and Rhode Island. A lot of them came from money. Some of them were regular like me, but they're just different. So, in fact, I had long hair. I had my hair in a long ponytail. When I went to school, they looked at me like they thought I was a hippie. I was like a freak. They all had short girls' haircuts. I was like that. But I made some good friends. But I decided I didn't want to stay there. So I transferred to University of Connecticut, and I finished college there.
Still studying medicine?
Medical technology is a very tough course, and really hard. Not easy. I had organic chemistry, physics, physiology, very tough classes. But I made it, because I wanted to. My senior year was an internship at the hospital in New Haven, where the Dr. Shapiro lived, that I worked for later. But that I liked. But school, I did well in school, but I worked hard.
Yeah.
But
What about you, Dad?
Almost the opposite story. I mean, I was one of the rough kids that Kathy's mother didn't want her to hang around with. So I love my mother and my grandparents and my father too, but I didn't really have any direction, no real influence, no real guidance in terms of what to do. I floated through high school, hung around with some tough kids. Luckily, didn't get into too much trouble, but I was able to get out of it, whatever I got into. Foolishly, this is an interesting story. Foolishly, when I was in high school, a friend of mine was in the Navy Reserve, and he convinced me to join the Navy Reserve. And I went to basic training in between my junior and senior year. And when I went there, I realized how stupid I was, that I really should be gearing myself to college and to doing something more productive. And I was able, because of my allergies to wool, get out of the Navy. And when I did, realized that I better start straightening myself up. And as a result, I went from a C/D student to an A/B student, and ended up graduating high school and doing well enough to get into college. I didn't go to a great college, but the college that I went to, University of New Haven, was good enough for me because it had the courses that I wanted. And I found that having the courses, things that I was interested in, was more important than anything else. In high school, I could care less about the junk that they were teaching me. But in college, I was in the business course of marketing, advertising, and I did that, and I excelled. I was on the dean's list for all 4 years. And that's really when I met Mom. I was looking for a job part-time while I was attending school. And they had a job listed in the x-ray department at the hospital. And I went to the x-ray department, got the job, and that's where I met Cathy. And we started out as friends, and we were friends for a year or so. And I had kind of a crisis in life. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, because then it was the Vietnam War was going on. Didn't really want to go to Vietnam. Even though I got out of the Navy, the Army had lower standards. They would have taken me, which I didn't really want. So as a result, what did I do?
Teaching.
Well, no, as a result, I took off with a friend of mine. We went to California for the summer, and when I came back, it was a whole different story. Cathy and I got together. She wanted me to tell her about my trip to California. I did, and next thing I knew, we were a couple. And
Like that.
A year or so later, we got married.
2 years, almost 2.
Almost 2.
Wow, what a story. That's great. Tell me a little bit more about your parents and your grandparents, and tell me their names so we can make sure we remember them.
Okay, my father was Philip Bauer, and my mother was Betty Kent Bauer. And let's see, as I mentioned before, they got divorced when I was young, and I didn't see my father very much. He came to visit, every month or so from Brooklyn to New Haven, and it was a real big deal when I got to see him. At first, my mother wouldn't let me out of the house. I had to sit in the house with my grandparents, my mother and my father in our bedroom that I shared with my mother. And after I got older, she let me go out with him, and we'd go out on a Sunday afternoon. But the main influence that I had in my life as a male was my grandfather, my papa. And that's why I'm really honored to keep his name alive by calling myself Papa. That was really, one of the things that he also helped me with was having a real good sense of humor. And I consider myself not funny, but I like to be silly and have a good sense of humor, and I got a lot of that from my papa.
And what was his name?
Jacob Kent.
Jacob Kent. And what was his it was Papa and
Gammy,
Gammy, and what was Gammy's name?
Sadie Beck Kent.
Excellent.
And she was born in St. Louis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, her parents were wealthy, and they had one of the first cars in Connecticut, and my uncle wanted to go to the movies one Saturday afternoon, and my grandfather had a chauffeur, and the chauffeur had the day off, and they had a car with a crank, and he had to crank the car, and the crank of the car fell off, hit him in the temple, and blinded him. So that was kind of the downfall of their wealth. They own property, they own a lot of things in New Haven, but that was one of the things that happened to them.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever heard that story. Mom, tell me about your parents and grandparents.
Okay, my mother's name was Agnes. My father was Howard. They were both from New Jersey. Their parents lived in New Jersey. My mother's parents lived in Englewood. My father's parents lived in Edgewater, about maybe 15 minutes apart. That was about 3 hours drive from New Haven, where I grew up. So often, like Christmas time, the springtime, sometimes in the summer, all the family all drive to New Jersey and spend the weekend there. My sister Patty and I would stay at my grandmother's house, my mother's house, and my brother would stay at my father's mother's house. And my father's mother was there. She was very nice people, but her husband, my grandfather, on my father's side, liked to watch wrestling. Always there to see them wrestling. That's what he loved. My mother's mother always cooked dinners for us. She made wonderful food, very plain, simple food. Was very, very good. And she always had cooked for Thanksgiving. Every holiday we were there, and we stayed in her house. She was a wonderful lady. She cared about her family and the world and people. That's why I took her name Nana when I became my grandmother. My other one was called Nana, but I was not as close to her as my mother's mother. And my Aunt Kay lived there too until she moved out. She was very big influence on me. She was a working woman. She didn't get married, and years later in life in California, she was always very good to us. We would go there for the weekend to visit. She would take me shopping. We always had fun going shopping with her. I did. And to New York, like I said before, to ice skating in Rockefeller Center. And grandparents, it was really nice I'd love to visit them. When I got a little old, my mother would take me there. I would spend a week or two in the summer at my grandparents' house. There was something that, like for camp, I would spend a week with them. It was really a nice time to visit. My father worked. He was in sales, and he was on the road. But times were hard. He had a second job. On a weekend, he worked as a butcher in a meat market. So he was working a lot, and my mother didn't work for a while. And then at one point, she had to go to work, and she worked part during the day in New Haven, and that's about us. We did things together as a family. I think one of the best times I ever had. My grandparents rented a cottage on the beach in New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore in Lavallette. And we all went, my sister, brother, me, mother and father, my grandparents. We had the greatest 2 weeks of that shore. It's something I always remember. And I remember the names of the girls that I met there. I can tell you their names and addresses or where they lived. We used to write back and forth to each other.
Wow.
And my best friend in New Haven, or in my neighborhood, Marilyn Chabaro was my best friend. Her father was a radiologist. He's the doctor that I worked for when Dad and I met in the hospital, State Hospital. Other friends lived in the neighborhood, but Marilyn was my best friend until she moved to a nice, wealthy neighborhood in Woodridge. I still saw her, still went to see her. A few years later, when I graduated from college, I went to work for her father.
Wow, that's great. All right, Mom, tell me a little bit more. What were you like as a kid? What did you like doing? And who were some of your best friends growing up?
Okay. First of all, I will tell you, I did not like dolls at all. I never played with the doll. It was not my thing. I loved to ice skate in the winter, every day in the winter after school and on weekends. On days off from school, I would walk down the hill to the ice skating pond. And my real dream was to go to the New Haven Arena, where I took ice skating lessons, learned how to dance, do a figure eight and twirl. That's a very good skater. My aunt took me one time to Walnut Park, and like Rockefeller started to ice skate in New York. It was a big thing for me, very exciting. Other things I just loved was playing baseball and the kids with the boys and the girls in the street, sled riding, which is fun in our backyard. Playing croquet and badminton in our backyard, but baseball in the street, but especially at the beach. We loved the beach. We had a wonderful beach to go to. It was a special treat to go to a state park called Chatfield Hollow. I remember every day my mother would pack a cooler full of sandwiches and to do housework in the morning, do laundry, and hang up the clothes in the clothesline, and make the beds and make lunch, and then go to the beach in the afternoon. A few years later, they got a cabana at another beach, and my father would come down with all the men after work. The whole neighborhood had cabanas and beach property. They would go there with the kids during the day, and after work, the men would come after work. Sometimes they would bring pizza, sometimes they would just cook out. We had just great fun summers. Summers were wonderful.
What was the name of the beach that you went to all the time?
First beach was Shell Beach.
Shell Beach.
And our name is that old. And now one of my best friends in Florida, she used to live in that. They turned into two condos years later, and she lived in the condo on that beach.
Who's that friend?
Judy Cooperman.
Judy Cooperman.
Compton.
Great.
And
Dad.
Barry. And I'll say one more thing. The other beach was Momoquin. That's a big, nice beach, really nice beach now. We had great memories as kids with the beach
Awesome.
and skating in the winter.
Great. Dad, what about you? What were you like as a kid, and what did you like to do? Play sports, activities?
I guess the main thing was hanging around. I hung around with my friends on the street. We played wiffle ball and football, and things were a lot different then because I was able to walk to school from where I lived. Even as a second, third grader, I walked to Barnard School, which was over a mile away. I walked back and forth both ways with a group of kids, and it was safe crossing streets. You know, it was not the way it is today. We never locked our doors, and my grandfather, my papa, was the only one in the family who had a car, and that was one of the things that I always really wanted, was to be old enough to drive. That was an important thing for me. So my papa had a 1938 Plymouth, but he didn't like to drive. He kept the car in the garage, and it was a big deal for him to take us for a ride on a Saturday or a Sunday. My mother and my gammy, they used to shop every day because they couldn't take all the groceries home in a car because there was no car to take it home. So that was really, pretty much it. It was a low-level life. I was kind of a scoochy kid, hung around with the guys, but never really a great student, never really a terrible one either as a young kid. Got in trouble, but always figured a way of getting out of it.
Sounds familiar. All right. Lots of great stories. Any final thoughts, words of wisdom that you want to share with anyone else who's watching?
Once you're married, meet the person you're married to, your best friend. Don't keep your secrets, don't hide. Never go to bed mad. I was trying to imagine how you feel your his shoes or her shoes, another person. So it's called empathy. Really feeling how the other person feels. That's what helped us a lot to get to really understand each other and be close together. He's been my best friend for many 58 years. I've been his best friend. It just didn't start out that way. You just started out as knowing each other. But I think the person you're married should be it's nice if it's your best friend, or you make it your best friend.
Tell you, I've lost a lot of things over the years. I've lost money, I've lost time, I've lost my hair. One thing I haven't lost is my sense of humor.
That's right.
And that's kept us together too.
It sure is.
Just enjoying each other's company and having a good time.
See?
You guys really enjoyed our house. We had a swimming pool and
Hot tub.
and
Pepsi machine in the basement.
and always our house was like the central point for you and Mike and
Your friends.
every kid in town coming there. I mean, we had Chike O'Keefe, a professional football player, as a high school student coming there, and what's her name? Amy Whita, who's son of what's his name?
George.
George Karlafis,
Delicious.
a professional football player. I mean, we just had plenty of people. You had Medi, all these crazy.
There were a lot of crazy friends, I'll tell you.
All your crazy friends.
Especially Chesky, David Chesky, my favorite of all. I love David, always will.
Well,
So
I
like our
remember your
third time.
birthday party at 16. We had a pool party, and Robbie Reardon brought a gun with little pellets, and he shot the pellets all over the whole backyard in the pool. There were hundreds of little plastic pellets in the pool, and what I ended up doing very quietly, went around, gathered up all the pellets. Didn't say a word to anybody, picked them all up, got them all up. You guys were partying, having a good time. And then I went out to the street, to Robbie's car, and dumped them all in it. Every single one of them. I found every single hiding place that I could. If the car is still around, there's probably still some of them in there now.
Another thing that's not in there. We're very proud of both you. Your apartments to Temple Israel. That's our home. We moved there. It was all welcoming. You felt right at home there. We joined the temple, became involved. I became involved as sisterhood. I was a president. Your bar mitzvah there, so did Michael. It was really a part of our marriage. See, you grew up doing that. We're very proud of both of you. I think it's why you and Michael were both very insistent in caring about your own kids having bar mitzvahs.
The temple really became a
home.
Central hub for us for our lives and for our family.
In Passover, I was the chairman of the Seder for the temple for many years, like 10, 12 years at least. I ran the whole thing. We had to cater, which was a lot of work. So hardly ever had a Seder at home. We were in Indiana, was always at the temple.
Well, our Seders at home were certainly not the kind of Seder that we had last night.
That's for sure.
The Seder we had last night was what I would call a legitimate Seder. It was done properly, whereas the Seders that we used to have were more of a joke. But they were fun, and we had a good time.
So we're very proud of both of you for doing that. We really were. We had nice parties for both of you to nice dinner and deals at Howard Johnson's. Same place for both of you. It was really nice.
Tell us about Mike and I when we were kids. Any funny memories or stories, or
Good
what were we
memories.
like?
You play soccer after school. You're a great soccer player. You want to play football. So many weeks, yes, I go to soccer. Dad would go to football back and forth. Just to see both of you play. Whatever you could see, that's what you're in school. So as far as family fun, in the mid '80s, the station that Dad worked for, Wazy, they came. Trip we went to Orlando to Disney World with the four of us. Had a really nice time there. That was a good time.
That's when I almost died.
That's when Dad almost died. He fell off a tram at Disney. It was like knocked out for 3 months at home. It was a tough time, but we got through it. But the other times that were fun, we used to take you guys camping. We had a camper, a pop-up camper. We used to take you to Maine and Connecticut to different places, camping in the summer. We had a great time. In fact, we still go to stay in a place in Maine that's right near the place that we first took you, my camping. You drive past there's the lake, Pemaquid Lake, all the time. So we have good memories of camping together. It was fun times.
In the early days, we didn't really have a whole lot of money to go on trips, and one of the things that we did for Christmas time vacation was to come down here to come down to Florida and visit Grandpa and Grandma, and we'd drive, and Mom and I would sleep on the couch, and then in the other bedroom you and Mike stayed in, and that's when we had a first experience with 3 o'clock dinners.
That's right.
And sitting by the pool and getting yelled at for splashing and having fun when it's not permitted in Century Village.
Little did you know, later on you would make Florida your home. So talk about your home where you settled down, first as snowbirds and now as permanent residents in Florida.
Let me just fill in a little
More
bit.
about them when kids.
What?
Any more about
What I'm trying to think of fun, happy times.
Sure.
Did Disney? We to California.
Oh yeah.
To a summer convention in San Francisco, and they drove down the whole coast of the forest. Drove down the coast, and we did. Then we took that to a Hawaii convention too. I remember the convention in Hawaii. It was in Honolulu, staying at the Rainbow Lanai, the big gorgeous Hilton Hotel. I'll never forget Michael there. He was so hungry waiting for dinner. He pulled the pineapple apart from the inside and ate the inside of the pineapple. You guys had a great time. We took you to a convention in New Orleans. That's another story.
New Orleans.
That's a real story.
You guys were really characters in New Orleans.
They were like 14 and 15 years old.
And I think that's when you have to be, in those days you had to be 18 to drink in Louisiana, but you guys were 14 and 15 and looked older than 14 and 15, certainly not 18, but they didn't check IDs, and the two of you got smashed.
Thanks to our friend Rick Sanders from California. His son got them the drinks. Boy, did they get raped. Ending with two things. You puking all over the floor during the awards ceremony on Dad's new yellow sport jacket.
Nice new yellow sport jacket.
You puked like crazy. Everyone, the whole place cleared out. We couldn't stay there. And Michael tried to get ice from the ice machine upstairs. Yeah, bang, and
He knocked it over.
I can't believe we took it. We went through all that, but it was fun. Those are things I never forget. That was especially a crazy one with you.
I don't think they've allowed us back in New Orleans since.
We were not bad. But we had a good time. We always tried to include you on any subway things that we could, and make it a family thing and have it be fun. In the early years, there were many late nights I had to work. I had to close the store at 2 a.m. and I had to take care of you like in the evening. I'd go home for dinner sometimes. I'd go back to work until 1, 2 in the morning. Long days. 7 days a week the store was open. The first year I opened, he went to Connecticut with you kids for Christmas week. I had to stay and work. It's been long years of working very hard. We worked together really well. I really much handled the store's operations, food, and customers. He handled the advertising. We worked together. And then he found more things we found. We got into 2 other franchises through Subway. There were flops. We lost a lot of money then. It was a very disappointing time. But did not give up. We just kept going and growing. We did know?
Oh, yeah.
Story.
So what was it like working together full time?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and it's true then and it's true today. Working with your mother, working with Cathy, whatever you want to call her at this point, I had to shelve my ego totally because I was used to being the boss, used to being in charge, and I knew that she had started the Subway and she was the one in charge. She was the president of the company, and I just had to put my ego, my thoughts behind and work together and do whatever was necessary to make it happen.
And what he did was two things. First of all, advertising. Advertising promotions to make something else even better. That was number one. Number two, you went to look for new locations. That's a big thing.
Well,
That's
I
how
knew
we
I
did it.
knew the market.
That's
So
how
I
we
mean,
did it.
I knew if we were going to expand, where the store should be. I had an idea of the finances, how we could get the finances, and how to get things done in terms of growth, and also the marketing and advertising and promotions. I mean, we did things with Subway on our own that other stores never did. And for example, we did I know you went to IU and you'll like this. We did an IU car smash when Purdue and IU were big competitors. And what we did is in the parking lot next to our Subway, we got an old beat up car, painted it with IU logos, and we charged people $1 a swing with a sledgehammer or whatever, and then took all that money and donated it.
I'm going to go back to two things. Number one, give me a second. In those early years of Subway, I never took a penny in salary, not a cent, nothing. All the money went back to building more stores and taking more loans from the bank to build store number 2, build store number 3, and store number 4. I started a delivery service on campus on Sunday nights because the students didn't have food in the dorms on Sunday nights. I started delivery service, and Dad would come in and work with me on Sunday nights. Sometimes you and I came in to answer phones and take delivery orders to hire drivers. That was a big change in Subway for me, for everyone else. And now look at Uber, it's so different. But anyway, that was for 4 years. And then in 1989, Dad left the radio business. He got jobs in New Hampshire. He wanted me to sell this, to leave the stores or hire someone to run it. I said, I can't do this. I put so much into this and have 4 stores. I worked so hard to get. He said, then hire someone to run them. We'll move to New Hampshire. Well, I went to look at New Hampshire with him to look at houses. I said, everything's much more expensive than Lafayette. We can't afford to live here. I have to still have money, all the things. I said, think about it. So he went off to New Hampshire and moved and lived in New Hampshire, lived in Lafayette to run the 4 stores. I heard a GM tell me work on it, and about 6 months later, he came back. He said, it just didn't work. We were better off as a team working together. But when he came back, he went into another radio business for a year.
The real thing is, I ended up working with her, but we knew that we were really, at that point, really movers. We were working to try to make things happen, and we had 4 stores, and 4 stores wasn't going to be enough. So I would leave radio completely and go into partnership with her if we continued to build and grow and do more stores. So over the next couple of years, we went up to 12 stores.
It's amazing. That's great.
In those days, in the 80s, was fun. I mean, it was like being part of a community, part of a camp. We were all together as part of a real team. We were in competition, and we fought, and we did everything we could. We ended up with the highest ratings during those years that the radio station ever had, and made more money than the station ever had. And it was just fantastic. We just worked hard as a family and everything. And I just think of one fun thing that we did in 1986. We had a morning man who was a real character, and he made he was always teasing me about the Mets, and I was teasing him about plenty of other things. So we made a deal because the Mets ended up in the World Series. We had a party at my house, and we had everyone at the radio station there. And the deal was that if the Mets won, he would do whatever I wanted him to do as a public embarrassment. And if he won, I would do whatever he wanted as a public embarrassment. Well, for those of you who are not real big baseball fans, that's the year that the Mets were down in the 5th game. This is game number 6, and the ball went through Bill Buckner's legs, and that ended up turning it around, and the Mets ended up winning the World Series. And as a penalty consequence to this disc jockey, what he did was downtown on the courthouse square, he wore an oversized diaper with a big sign saying, "The boss was right, the Mets are the best." Stopped traffic, had everyone all around town laughing.
Oh, that's great.
Wasn't he a lawyer before then?
No.
Barry was a lawyer.
Yeah, I think he might
He
have
was
been.
actually been a lawyer.
Any other cool promotions?
Oh,
things that
yeah.
you got? What were some of the coolest promotions that you did at the radio station?
Well, one of them was we did.
House Girls.
Well, we had okay, that was a cool one. We did
Car Smash.
we had Pepsi Cola at the time, and if you remember the Aha Girls, they were like the
Singers.
singers. They were very attractive black girls who represented the Pepsi. And Kathy and I went to a meeting in Indianapolis, and the people from Pepsi were saying that the Aha Girls were going to come to Indianapolis, and then they were going to go to Fort Wayne. So I said, wait a minute. I said, what's wrong with Lafayette? We're right in the middle of the two of them. Why don't you stop here? And they said, well, I don't think you can arrange it. It'll be too complicated. I said, let me deal with it. So what I did is I arranged with the shopping center that was across the street to let a helicopter land with the girls. I also arranged with Purdue to have all the cheerleaders and everything at the store, and they at a limousine company that drove the girls across the street from the parking lot to the store, and the Aha Girls were there. I still have pictures of them at home, and that was the busiest day that store ever had. It was right at the corner of one of the busiest corners in town.
Great story.
It was at the end of 1988 or 1980. Before that, Dad's boss, the radio station was sold again for a second time. He had a new boss.
Yeah, well,
It was not the best.
yeah, we had some tough times. The original owner let me do basically whatever I wanted. He didn't. He was not a radio person. He was a Yale undergrad, Harvard Law businessman. He was very smart, but didn't know a thing about radio and didn't really care. All he knew was he wanted to make a profit. And I was making him a profit, and he was happy. And he told me, do whatever you want, but just let me know first. So one day I had an idea of taking the AM station, we had an AM and an FM, of taking the AM and turning it to a news talk, and broadcasting the Chicago Cubs daytime. And I thought this was a great idea. I had everything all lined up. And I called him up and told him, this is what I want to do. And he said, no. I said, how come? He said, no. okay, and left it at that. I found out the reason he said no shortly thereafter is that he had sold the AM station, and that's why we couldn't do anything with it. And then part of the deal was that the management in Lafayette was supposed to be a 3-year deal, and he told me that at the end of 3 years, that the manager of the station in Connecticut was going to retire, and he was going to bring me back to manage that station. Well, after 2 years, he sold that station, and he told me that I could either stay here with no lifeline, or I could leave, whatever I wanted. And I decided to stay with the new owner, and he was a pretty good guy. I liked him. In fact, I kind of knew him a little bit. He had some Connecticut ties. He was a sales manager at one of the stations in Hartford at one time. So things were good, but I told the new guy that if he ever decided to sell a radio station, that it would be great if he gave me notice, because I would be able to come up with some money and be able to buy it. And he told me he would. And it turned out that he agreed to do it. And the next thing I knew, he sold the station to somebody else. And that's the way life in radio was. My original owner of the station in Connecticut, when he bought another station, I asked him if he liked buying other radio stations. And he told me he didn't like buying them, he just liked selling them.
All right, let's finish the takeover of Subway, and then we'll talk a little bit about other stuff. But Dad, go ahead.
Well, I remember having this discussion with the lawyer, telling him that Mom was real good with people, with food, and I was good with advertising and marketing, and knew the area and business. I said, between the two of us, we can make a success of this. I said, all he really knew was that he had some money to put into it. I said, he had a choice that he could either sell us the stores, or if he didn't, she would open up a store across the street from his house, and they would cross each other every day, driving back and forth 60 miles. I said, it makes no sense. And the lawyer agreed with me, and he goes, you better sell him the store, because this way, at least you'll get your money back. The money that he got was enough to buy him a new car.
And years later, that first Subway turned into how many now?
Yeah, today.
Yeah.
Well,
Mike is really involved.
I had the first 4 stores. That was in the radio for first until 1989, was it?
Yeah.
84 to 89, 4 stores. And then
it was a real conflict of interest on my part, because I was dealing with other fast food restaurants and everything, and the owner of the radio station said, if your wife runs the stores and you have nothing to do with it, as long as you don't have more than 4, that's okay. But if you get more than 4, then it's going to be a problem. So it turned out that she ended up buying not only the store, but the rights to 3 other franchises
in town.
in town.
And one by one, we borrowed more money from the bank. 2 years later, up in store number 2 on Till Road. Year after that, number 3 on Southwest. Number 4 on 26. By 1989, I had 4 stores. I was working my butt off day all the time. Raising you 2 kids, getting you through school, hit football, soccer, run all your games. Did not miss your games, either of you. Paid for school, Sunday school, and Dad was working really hard. We had to come together and work hard to get this work, to make it work. We did. The stores were busy. I don't know nothing about hiring people and training. So.
Mom, Dad was busy with the radio station. Tell us about what you did when you moved to Indiana?
He was very busy, very busy. I had, in school, so I needed something to do. I got a job working for the government, career development, training people to be janitors and to work. I did that for a year. That's all there was. I couldn't get a job in teaching or medical technology or in hospital lab. So after a year of this, I got tired of it. They paid me very low wages, minimum. I said, Dad had been driven by a place in Choice Hill, a blank space. So he said, maybe you could put a subway there. There's no subways here. So I said, it'd be something for me to do when you were in school. I came home and told him it was a good idea. He called his friend Dick Pilchin, his subway, said, you're interested in doing this. And Dick Pilchin told him, there's already someone going in there, right up the street. He can't go there. So Dad continued to talk to Dick and the people at the subway, and he found the guy who was building the store. To make a very long story much shorter, Dad negotiated with he was a 20-year-old kid who had some money from his father's dying. I'd been to a subway in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and so how good it was doing. He said that'd be a good thing to do. So we bought him out. The store was under construction. We had no money. Dad and I went to the bank. I convinced the banker that it was almost $60,000 to buy the store under construction. I still owed him another $20,000. At the end of the school year, this is in November '84, I went to Subway for 2 weeks for training, left you and Mike home with Dad for 2 weeks. Our cleaning lady to come and check on you. And I went to Connecticut to learn how to run a subway. Then came back and boy, and then those hard times, good times, but hard times, busy times started. Because I came back over the start, like November 30th, 1984.
That was, I think Cathy was the only person in Subway history ever to go to Subway franchise training school without having bought a franchise. She went to training because they believed that she was going to buy the franchise. And the day before she graduated is when we agreed and we bought the franchise.
And we put a second mortgage on the house.
We took a second mortgage on the house.
For as much as we could.
We owed the buyer or the seller $20,000.
More than that.
It was $20,000 as a final payment, and we didn't have it.
Plus, you had to pay the bank the loan.
We got the loan on the bank based on my job at the radio station, and we went to
the bank in Lafayette.
We went to the bank and got the loan.
The rest of the money.
And we needed $20,000 more for payment. And we told them, this is kind of crazy on our part. We told them that we would pay him back in 6 months with no interest. And if we didn't pay him back the $20,000 in 6 months with no interest, he can have the store back. Well, what he didn't know was that I was planning on getting a big bonus for having a great year at the radio station. And that's where the bonus went.
Dad, tell me about Z96.
Okay. When I first got to the radio station, I was really ready. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a salesman, a sales manager, and now I was a general manager. I was in charge of programming, in charge of engineering, in charge of personnel, when before all I had to do was sell. And it was a big change. And when I got to the meeting, the first meeting, when Dick Lightfoot, the owner, introduced me to the staff, he just said, "Here's your new general manager." And he looked at me and he said, "Here are the keys to the radio station. Treat it like it's your own." And he walked away. And it was a great show of confidence, but also I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I mean, here I am, a sales manager from the East Coast, now in the Midwest, totally different culture, totally different atmosphere, and being in charge of something that I knew nothing about. And it just happened to go very well from there.
Okay, last time we talked, we had just moved to Indiana. Tell us about what was it like moving from Connecticut to Indiana?
You can start first. You went first.
Go ahead, Dad.
It was a major transition. I mean, you know, in Connecticut, we lived all our lives. We knew everyone. We had just a way of life, and this was completely starting all over again. And I will say that I give Mom more credit than anything else in the world, because she supported me. I mean, so many women can say no to a husband getting a job and moving 1,000 miles away to a place that you've never been to and never wanted to go to. But she was there. She was there for me, and that really was a major deal. So that was a terrific thing that she did, and it made all of our lives so much easier.
Great. Mom, what was it like for you?
Very, very hard, very hard. Leaving our families, our friends, and good food. He went out ahead of me and stayed at a hotel. When I came, we had to rent a house because we couldn't buy a house. We had to rent our house in Connecticut. So some people didn't have the money to buy a house. Mortgage rates were high, so we rented a house. But before it was ready, we could move it. We had Dad and I, you and Mike had to stay in a motel room with 2 big beds. That was it. And when we got there, Stephen, you had very bad poison ivy all over you. We could not go outside. It was hot summer, like 90 degrees, June, July, really hot. You had to stay inside. Finally, I found a doctor that would give you a shot, gave you cortisone shots that cleared it up. But the first 2 weeks there were really tough until we finally moved to this house. We found this good house to rent. It was fine. It was big enough for us. You and Mike had your own bedrooms. We had living room, dining room, basement, bedroom, kitchen. It's a nice neighborhood. It had a pool and a clubhouse and ponds, so it was a pretty area. So it was a nice place to move to. But Dad was working a lot.